His time has expired. The gentleman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Durham, thank you for coming to testify today before the committee. I'm a recovering attorney and a former judge.
Oh, God love you.
Thank you. As such, I know firsthand the importance of following procedures. I know law enforcement and prosecutors across this nation do that on a daily basis, and they do that because they want to ensure that a criminal investigation is conducted properly. They need to adhere to a full due process of law and fair application of the law. And quite frankly, process matters because how we go about our investigations will either give credibility to our conclusions or will belie our conclusions. Do you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly.
Would you agree that some of the important steps in an investigation would include simply vetting the initial information and claims, obtaining the relevant documents, talking to the relevant witnesses, determining the credibility of those witnesses and documents, and doing a lot of that by seeking corroboration of what is either provided in written testimony or oral testimony or in documentary form? Is that true?
That's absolutely true.
And the definition of corroboration is not difficult. Evidence that supports or confirms a statement, theory, or finding. It's effectively confirmation. That's what we need in an investigation is we need to confirm whether or not an allegation is true or not, correct?
Yes.
As your report showed, the FBI did not follow its well-established procedures and did not corroborate the information that they were receiving. Is that fair to say?
That's a fair statement.
Take, for example, page 54 of your report. You show that the FBI opened a full investigation into George Papadopoulos, but they did so a mere 3 days after receiving intelligence from Australia. During those 3 days, do you think the FBI attempted to corroborate the information they had initially received?
If they did, we didn't see any evidence of that fact.
In fact, on page 112 in your report, you say, quote, despite the lack of any corroboration of the Steele report, sensational allegations, however, in short order, portions of 4 of the reports were included in the initial Carter Page FISA application without further verification or corroboration of the allegations contained therein. You also state on page 57 about Australia. Australia could not and did not make any representation about the credibility of information, and that's because they couldn't verify or corroborate that information. Is that true?
That's correct.
You further go on to say on page 57 that, quote, the Office of Special Counsel found no indication from witness testimony, electronic communications, emails, calendar entries, or other documentation that at the time the FBI gave any consideration to the actual trustworthiness of information the diplomats received from Papadopoulos. Do you remember writing that portion of the report?
I do.
It seems amazing to me that the FBI would not give consideration to the actual trustworthiness of certain information found in an investigation at this level. You write extensively on how the FBI elected to not interview Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, or Charles Dolan. Would interviews with those key individuals have helped to corroborate or disprove the information that the FBI was receiving?
Yes.
Through your investigation, did you uncover any reason as to why the FBI elected to not interview these individuals?
I know that the people who were the operational people doing the investigation were told they could not interview Mr. Page until the 7th floor authorized it, and then the director didn't authorize the interview of Mr. Page until March of 2017.
You also noted that it took 75 days to pass the Steele dossier to the Crossfire Hurricane team. It seems to me that that is belying the ability of the investigative team to actually corroborate what the allegations were. Would you agree with that as well?
I would agree with that.
Mr. Durham, in my opinion, a failure to corroborate information leads to holes in credibility. It also gives rise to potential corruption or actual corruption. The American people now know, based on your report, that during the peak of a presidential campaign, the FBI elected not to follow its own basic procedures and instead launch a politically motivated investigation into a leading presidential candidate. I am confident and hopeful that there are still many good agents within the FBI who are there to perform their sacred duty of protecting and serving our nation, that undertake investigations on a daily basis without regard to political affiliation. That's my hope. That's my belief.
That's my experience.
But your report, Mr. Durham, shows that at least top FBI leadership in this case was politically motivated and did not follow long-standing procedures necessary for a proper proper criminal investigation. I heard you say to my colleagues on the left a little while ago, quote, nothing in their files would corroborate the claims. And another quote, not one single fact in the Steele dossier has been corroborated. It is amazing to me that we would go through a high-level investigation like this and fail to adhere to a basic principle of investigative procedures, and that is corroborate the witness testimony and corroborate the evidence. With that, I yield my time, and I thank you for your efforts.
The gentleman yields back. Now recognize